These are assembly instructions for my hexagonal pop-up card. This is a quick overview on how to personalize this shape. So this is the blank form for the shape, showing the top and the bottom shape. And I've gone through and selected a few print and cut images that I'm going to put onto the facets of my shape. A great way of personalizing this would be to go on to upload and upload some photos, and then you'd be doing pretty much the same thing as what I'm doing with these print and cut images. I'm taking my first image, and this is just a print and cut image. So my guide is what I'm going to have to slice out of this image. It doesn't quite fit like this. However, I'm going to take that guide again and I'm going to flip it vertically. I can change the size of my image, but I don't want to change the size of my guide piece. Slice. And then I'm going to discard with the parts that I don't need. So I'm going to keep doing that with all my images. So I have this image. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to take my guide piece and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to fit my image into the shape. So I'm just taking a close-up look here. Fitting that pink shape over my image and then slicing. And so that gives you another shape. So if you had uploaded a photo in here, you'd be doing the exact same thing. You'd be trying to size your image so that you get the best of the image within the perimeters of your guide shape. And you'd just be doing this for all sides of your facet. And here's a little bit of a different example. So this one's great, but it doesn't really have a backing. So I'm going to take my guide, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to change it to a cut. And I'm going to put it on a different color backing. Like what would be a good backing? White maybe? And then bring my image to the front. I'm changing my image size. And again, I can change my image size as much as I want to. The size of my trapezoid shape cannot change. So I'm just going to grab this and do flatten. And that gives me another image. And then I have my Merry Christmas one. So for my Merry Christmas one, since it's so big, I want to put it on that hexagon shape. I'm grabbing my shape and I'm putting it on top. I know the height of it is 1.948, so I want my backdrop to be a little bit bigger than that. So let's say 2. And then I have my Merry Christmas there. So my Merry Christmas is a separate layer. I'm grabbing my shape. Maybe it's a little bit too big. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And basically that's what you have to do. You're just playing with images and trying to make them fit. So I'm going to slice the background on this one. I'm sending that Christmas ornament image to the back. So my Merry Christmas appears. I'm changing my Merry Christmas to a brighter red to go with the ornament. And then I'm flattening. Here we go. This piece is going to go in the center like so. As I'm slicing my images, I want to keep in mind that the shapes that have the narrower top and the wider bottom are going to go on the top of my ornament, whereas the ones that have the narrower bottom and the larger top are going to go on the bottom of my ornament. I'm just going to go ahead and create 6 images for the bottom, 6 images for the top, and then the 2 hexagon shapes for the center. And then we're going to continue. So now I have the 6 images for my top and the 6 images for my bottom. So I'm placing this image in the center, and for these I can align center, and that places it exactly where it needs to be. And I'm doing the same thing for my bottom, align center, and then I have the images that I want to place around the perimeter of my shape. For the top, the first one is easy to do. I'm just placing my Santa on the shape. But then the next ones have to be rotated. So the next one over here needs to be rotated 60 degrees. So I'm going up at the top where it says rotate, and I'm inserting the number 60. And that'll put it in the position that it needs to be in order to place it. And then I'm going to take my next image, and that one is 60 twice, so 120. So I'm rotating it to 120. The next one is 180, so I'm rotating it 180. And then the next one, I'm just going to rotate it -60. And that'll put it in position for here. For this one, I'm going to rotate -120. Next, I'm doing the exact same thing for the bottom piece. So I'm positioning my top image and my next image. I need to rotate it 60 degrees. Positioning it here, 120, 180, 240, or -120, it's the same thing, 300, or -60, it's the same thing. And you want to make your image very, very large and just place your images exactly where you want them to be. I'm taking all the pieces for my top shape, and I'm going to click on Group Layers panel. So that brings them up to the top of my Layers panel. So now that they're up at the top, I can click on Group and ungroup them. I'm selecting all of my images. So these are the top 7 items on my Layers panel, and I'm grouping them. So next I'm moving down to the attached item underneath, and that's going to be the shape. And I'm going to click on Detach. And I'm just going to go down to that bottom shape, and I'm going to turn it into white. So that entire shape has been turned into white, and I'm selecting Group at the same time, and I'm pressing Flatten. So now all those images are going to print on my shape. And I'm going to Arrange, Send to Back, and then I'm selecting everything and pressing Attach. So now that puts all those score lines and those cut lines back onto my shape. If you had just selected everything and flattened, then all those score lines and those cut lines would have disappeared. So I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom. I'm clicking on Group, Ungroup. I've got all my print and cut images here. I'm pressing Shift, and I'm just clicking on all of them, and then I'm clicking on Group. And then I've got the image below. I'm changing my shape to white. I'm going to Detach. I'm selecting my shape and selecting my grouped items, and then I'm flattening. Then I'm going to send that whole thing to the back, Arrange, Send to Back, and then I'm selecting everything and clicking on Attach. So all those score lines and cut lines are back in place. So next I send this to my printer to print, and then to my Cricut machine to cut, and then we have to assemble it. So I've printed and cut my 2 shapes, and I'm folding down on all the score lines. I used 80-pound Cricut cardstock for this, and I cut it down to 8.5 by 11, and then just did a regular print and cut. The rubber bands that I'm using for this project are size 12, which are 1 3/4 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. They're relatively small. I'm going to flip my pieces over so that I'm looking at the inside of my shape, so this has no printing on it. And I have some reinforcement pieces. I'm just adding reinforcement pieces to these panels that have the tabs with the holes in them. So there's 4 of them. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of them and then just gluing them down, making sure that they're not interfering with the score lines. They're slightly smaller, so they shouldn't interfere with those score lines. So I'm just gluing down all 4 of them. So I'm placing one of my pieces above the other one. I'm taking my rubber band and I'm inserting it from the right into the hole that's on my tab. And then on my other piece, I'm inserting my rubber band from the left. Then I'm folding my tab down onto the shape and putting glue all over it. And I'm doing the same for the other one, just covering that tab with glue. And then I'm stretching my rubber band a little bit so that it doesn't get caught in between my 2 tabs. And I'm just gluing those tabs together. They should be flush on the 3 sides and glued together at the score line. I'm stretching out my rubber band and I'm doing the same thing. I'm bringing the top panel over and threading my rubber band from the right hand side, and then on the other one, I'm threading my rubber band from the left-hand side. And then I'm putting glue on both tabs. I'm pulling my rubber band taut as I match up my tabs. So both tabs are glued together and I've got my rubber band that's in between them. I'm pulling out the 2 panels that have the rubber band. I have these tabs at the top, but I want them at the bottom. So I'm going to flip my piece over, and then I'm lifting up the image, folding down that tab and putting glue all over the tab, and then repositioning my image on top and then just gluing that down. I have 4 of those tabs to glue in, so I'm just folding them under, putting glue all over them and folding them down. So this is the underside of my card, and this is the top. I'm just going to release it, and it forms that ball.